there is a process to this, right? I think I've talked about um, the timing of it. At what point do I start preparing? Is this something that I can do for 6 months, or is this something that's going to take 2 years? All right. But I think at the end of the day, it's still about a process and really understanding what's the desired outcome and what's the timing around that.
Yeah, and it might take 6 months and it might take 2 years, and that's influenced by, in my mind, two things. One is your commitment to getting it done sooner rather than later, and separately, the complexity of your business, right? I mean, I someone would say, like, how long does it normally take once I sign a letter of intent to sell my business to close? And the answer is there's sort of an average, but it depends. It depends if along the way something comes out of the diligence that everyone says, I got to pause. We got to figure this out before we can move forward.
Yep.
And so that happens, right?
Yeah.
And so my pitch is let's figure out what those things are before you even get into the process.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there's a lot of thoughtfulness around this idea of being prepared. It's just got to wrap your brain around it.
Yep. Very good. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that these that owners need to think about. So when we engage with buyers or when buyers look at companies to acquire, um, what do they want when they look at these companies? What's their preferred target to acquire?
Yeah. So there's different kinds of buyers first, right?
Mhm.
But generally, when you talk about what we're experiencing today, which is a lot of private equity, right? Their focus is return on investment, right? I mean, everyone's focus ultimately should be return on investment, but they're really laser focused on return on investment, right? Is this deal a deal that's going to create a return if I invest in that business? And so starts with the financials,
Mhm.
right? And so, as would, be no surprise, that's where we start.
Yep.
Try and step back and we talk about, key elements of the business and some of the strategic points that someone would make when they're going to, to tell their story. But in the end, the financial statements speak first. And again, as is no surprise, um, when you start diligence, it starts with the financial statements. Every buyer will hire a quality of earnings provider or someone who'll do financial diligence, and they'll give you a diligence list, and that's what it will speak to, right? So, what are buyers looking for? They're looking for return on investment. There are a subset of them, and even those that, are a strategic, I'm sorry, a private equity firm or someone investing in a portfolio company will ultimately design that portfolio company with a group of leaders who will speak to what they're looking for when they go out and buy. And they're looking for quality customer base, obviously quality employees, people with experience. In some cases, they're looking for a platform. And so they'll care more about the tech stack, whether or not there are SOPs in the business. Is the business scalable? What will that take? So they'll ask themselves those kinds of questions. And generally, those matter, Sometimes they don't because some buyers already have an infrastructure and they're just going to pull that business into their infrastructure. And they're really looking for quality employees, which are very hard to find generally and certainly in this industry. I'm talking about sales folks and laborers, right?
Yeah.
Technicians, project managers, very hard to find,
Yep.
high demand, low supply. And so they care about all of those things, but it always does come back to the financial statements throughout the process and certainly when it starts.
Yeah, I think what you highlighted again, it's a holistic approach, right? It isn't just the financials, like you highlighted. It's the customer base, right? What's the mix of customers, and is there customer density, or is it really distributed and diverse? Quality employees. I would put in that conversation the strength of the leadership team and the depth. What's the role of the owner versus you know their immediate reports and the next level down.
For sure.
Who's carrying the licenses and the technical aspects of the job that allows them to do the work in their market. And I also think that there's a lot of value. You and I talking about offline a lot. Um, the structure and the dependency and the robustness, if you will, of the tech stack, right? How are we capturing the financial reports? What does the data tell us, right? So that's from the financial reporting, but are we using some sort of service management platform to be more efficient in how we get the work done, right? Do we have some control around our inventory and the types of products we have on the shelf and where it's at and what we're able to buy
Yeah,
it.
I think
So,
I think the things that you're saying are a demonstration of why it's important to have these conversations.
yeah.
And some owners will care more about who the buyer is, meaning that their circumstances may be that they want to stick around, right?
Mhm.
And so they really care who they're going to work for. They always care because they want to leave their employees in a good place. But my point is that when you have these conversations, and if you want to influence or make some decisions about who you're willing to sell to versus who you're not, you start to it will start to matter how much you're investing in your tech stack, right? Like there's buyers out there today who will tell you my story is I have an infrastructure in place. And so though I care about your tech stack, it won't really exist much longer after we close. And so that doesn't mean, don't invest in tech stack because there's a very high likelihood that when you do, you will end up with a better outcome and you will have better metrics and you will have a more experienced and skilled workforce. It does matter what environment they work in. And so all of those things are reasons to invest. But just know that it's possible that all that you've invested, because this happened to me at Security Networks. I mean, we invested millions and millions and millions of dollars in some proprietary software to help run the business model that we were running, which was a dealer model. And when we sold for a really high multiple, and we were able to do that for a variety of reasons. And a big reason was, one of the big reasons was our level of profitability. I mean, we were super profitable because we were incredibly efficient because we invested in people and we invested in tech stack. But
Yeah.
the truth is, when the buyer bought the business, they scuttled the tech stack.
Yeah.
And, for months, I probably reeled a bit because of all the energy and effort that we put into building it.
A sweat.
And, but in the end, the lesson for me was don't fall in love with the asset, right? Right?
Mhm.
Because these things can happen and will happen in business. And in the end, we had a great run. And we enjoyed what we were doing throughout, it was hard, but it was also very rewarding. And we had a great outcome in the end. And then I moved on to something else. My point is that you should make these investments, and you should do it because you'll end up with a better outcome more often than not, even if the outcome is that that tech stack doesn't really it doesn't survive. What survives is everything that the people who worked in your business have learned, and that's really what you're passing on to the buyer.
Yeah. I love it.